Hello all. This is Six Path Weeb, and I welcome you back to the channel where imagination rewrites destiny and every what if opens a new world of possibilities. Today, we continue our journey into one of the most intriguing alternate storylines ever imagined in the Shinobi universe. Our fanfic topic is: What if Kaguya loved Naruko? Part 3. In the previous parts, we explored a reality where the cold, distant progenitor of chakra, Kaguya Otsutsuki, was not driven solely by fear and control, but by something far more human. Emotion. A world where her encounter with Naruko changed the course of fate itself. Bonds were formed where none should exist, and choices were made that challenged the very foundation of the original timeline. Now, in Part 3, the story deepens. The consequences of Kaguya's feelings begin to unfold, and the ripple effects spread across the shinobi world. Allies may become enemies, enemies may question their purpose, and Naruko finds herself at the center of a conflict that is no longer just about power, but about connection, sacrifice, and the struggle between destiny and free will. Will Kaguya's love become a force of salvation? Or the very thing that leads to ruin? Can Naruko change the fate of someone who was never meant to understand humanity? And most importantly, what happens when a being feared as a goddess begins to feel like a human? Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. With that said, let's begin the story. After gathering everything she thought she might need, Naruko stood quietly in the middle of the training ground, her golden hair brushing lightly against her shoulders as the evening breeze passed through. She had come to help Kaguya learn how to be a calm and thoughtful ninja, rather than relying only on raw strength. Still, a small worry lingered in her heart. She wondered if Kaguya would always stay kind, or if one day she might forget her new path. But Naruko gently pushed that thought aside. She believed in giving others a chance to grow, just as others had once believed in her. Across from her stood her current sensei, Tony. He didn't speak her language very well, but he had a clever way of teaching. With a small stick, he began drawing shapes in the dirt. Naruko watched with curiosity as he sketched a simple elephant, pointing to its trunk, and then drew a tiny figure standing in a strong pose. Though the drawings were simple, she understood that he was trying to show her something important. Tony stepped into the stance he had drawn, lifting his elbow upward and holding his arm firmly. He then motioned for Naruko to come closer. She tilted her head slightly, unsure at first, but then smiled. "All right," she said softly, stepping forward. To be careful, Naruko had already placed special training seals on herself so she wouldn't accidentally use too much strength. She gently threw a quick jab toward Tony's chest. To her surprise, Tony turned his body and blocked the strike with his elbow. Naruko blinked, pulling her hand back with a small gasp. "That felt different," she said, shaking her hand lightly. "It didn't hurt much, but it was enough to make her notice." Tony gave a small, proud smile and then demonstrated the movement again. Naruko's eyes lit up. "Oh. I get it now," she said, her voice bright with excitement. Tony stepped forward and threw a light punch toward her, encouraging her to try. This time, Naruko carefully copied the stance, raising her elbow just like he had shown her. Tap. She blocked it perfectly. Her face immediately broke into a wide grin. "That worked." Tony nodded approvingly, though he gently corrected her posture again to make it even better. Then he moved faster, throwing a series of gentle practice punches to help her learn. Naruko focused, her movements becoming smoother each time. At first, she stumbled a little, but she didn't give up. Each block became more confident than the last. Even when she made a mistake, she simply laughed and tried again. "I'm getting better," she said happily. Tony paused for a moment, then suddenly stepped back and made a familiar hand sign. He looked at Naruko expectantly. She blinked, then smiled knowingly. "Oh. You want me to use that technique?" With a small nod to herself, Naruko brought her hands together. In a soft puff of air, several copies of her appeared beside her, each one smiling just as brightly as the original. The training ground filled with laughter as the Narukos looked at one another. "Let's practice together," one of them said. "Yes. That'll make it even more fun," another added. Naruko placed her hands on her hips, grinning. "All right everyone, let's do our best." Tony chuckled softly, watching as the group eagerly prepared to learn. With teamwork, patience, and cheerful determination, Naruko continued her training, growing stronger not just in skill, but in kindness and understanding as well. Naruko tilted her head, curious about why Tony wanted her to create shadow clones. She wasn't sure what he had in mind, but she trusted her teacher and decided to give it a try. With a focused breath and a bright spark of energy, she formed a hand sign, and in a soft puff, 19 identical copies of her appeared around the field. The clones blinked, stretched, and smiled, each one full of the same lively spirit. Naruko couldn't help but grin at Tony's wide-eyed amazement. She placed her hands on her hips proudly, then glanced back at him, wondering what came next. "Oh," she said, her eyes lighting up as she had an idea. "Maybe you want me to practice watching myself from different angles." Tony gave a small nod and a warm smile, encouraging her to explore. Naruko signaled one of her clones, and the two began a gentle practice routine. They moved carefully, stepping, turning, and blocking in a slow, thoughtful rhythm. Naruko paid close attention, observing how her movements looked from the outside. Tony quietly sketched a few diagrams in a notebook, planning new exercises for her. He seemed pleased, watching her learn with such enthusiasm. On the other side of the training field, Kaguya sat peacefully beside 3 wooden posts. She held a book about a graceful martial art that focused on balance and harmony. The gentle philosophy of the style fascinated her. It felt different from anything she had known before, calm, thoughtful, and kind. "This is a wonderful choice," she murmured to herself, smiling softly. "A way to protect without harm." Inspired, she placed the book aside and carefully formed a hand sign. Soon, several clones appeared around her as well. They looked at one another curiously, then began practicing together in pairs. Their movements were slow and coordinated, like a quiet dance. For a while, everything was peaceful. The field was filled with the soft sounds of footsteps, laughter, and learning. But then, something unusual happened. Kaguya noticed her clones pausing. They looked at her, not with confusion, but with a strange stillness. She blinked, unsure what they were thinking. She hadn't given them any new instructions. "Perhaps," she said gently, "you're unsure what to do next?" The clones didn't respond. Instead, they began moving again, but not in the same gentle rhythm as before. Their steps were uneven, their coordination off. It was as if they had become tangled in their own thoughts. Kaguya stood up slowly. "Let's pause," she said calmly. "We can start again together." But just as she spoke, the clones all vanished at once in soft puffs of energy. Naruko, noticing the sudden change, jogged over with concern. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice kind. Kaguya placed a hand to her temple, looking thoughtful but calm. "It seems I may have created too many at once," she said. "Perhaps I lost focus." Tony joined them, nodding. "That can happen. Sometimes when you try something new, it takes a few tries to understand how it works best." Naruko smiled brightly. "Hey, that just means we get to learn more. Want to try again together?" Kaguya looked at her, then smiled, a gentle, genuine smile. "Yes," she said. "I would like that." The 3 of them returned to the field, this time working side by side. Naruko demonstrated smaller groups of clones, Tony guided with simple notes, and Kaguya practiced patiently, step by step. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the training field was filled once more with calm movement and quiet laughter. And this time, everything felt just right. In Kaguya's mindscape, the white world softened, as though a gentle breeze had passed through a place that had not felt movement in ages. The barren trees, once stiff and lifeless, seemed to glow faintly, their pale branches shimmering like frost in the morning sun. Kaguya stood still, her thoughts swirling, unsure of what was real and what was memory. Then, in the quiet light, she noticed something new. A small figure stood a short distance away. At first, Kaguya thought it might be another illusion. But as the figure stepped closer, she saw a young girl with bright golden hair and kind, curious eyes. The girl's presence felt warm, completely different from the cold, unsettling aura of the shadowy double from before. "Hello," the girl said gently. Kaguya blinked, surprised by the softness in her voice. "Who are you?" The girl smiled, placing her hands behind her back in a relaxed, friendly way. "My name is Naruko. I've been waiting for you." Kaguya studied her carefully. There was something familiar about her, something comforting, like a memory she had nearly forgotten. "Waiting for me?" Kaguya asked. "Why?" Naruko tilted her head slightly, as if choosing her words with care. "Because you looked lost. And sometimes, when someone feels lost inside, this place changes to help them find their way again." Kaguya glanced around. The once empty landscape now seemed softer, brighter. The air no longer felt heavy. This place. It's changing. Naruko nodded. It listens to what's in your heart. Kaguya grew quiet. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she said, I met another version of myself here. She was filled with anger. Naruko's expression didn't change, but her eyes became thoughtful. Sometimes, parts of us carry feelings we don't understand yet. That doesn't make them bad. It just means they need to be understood. Kaguya frowned slightly. She didn't want to understand anything. She only wanted to take. Naruko stepped a little closer. And what do you want? The question lingered in the air. Kaguya opened her mouth to answer quickly, but stopped. For the first time, she really thought about it. I wanted peace, she said slowly. I worked so hard for it. I didn't want anyone to suffer. Naruko smiled warmly. That's a kind wish. Kaguya looked at her again, more carefully this time. You speak as though it's simple. Naruko giggled softly. It can be. Sometimes, the hardest things feel simple once you understand them. She turned and pointed toward the distance. The white landscape was no longer empty. Soft green shoots pushed through the pale ground. Small leaves began to grow on the once bare trees. The world was coming back to life. Kaguya watched in quiet amazement. Is this because of me? It's because you're remembering, Naruko replied. Not just the hard things, but the gentle ones too. Kaguya felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was calm. But I still have to return, Kaguya said. There are things waiting for me outside this place. Naruko nodded. I know. And you will. Kaguya hesitated. Will I see you again? Naruko gave a bright, reassuring smile. Whenever you need to remember what matters, I'll be here. The light around them grew brighter, wrapping everything in a soft glow. Kaguya closed her eyes for just a moment. And when she opened them again, the peaceful warmth of the mindscape followed her, like a quiet promise that she was no longer alone. Back with Naruko and her friends. Naruko stood very still, her hand hovering just inches away from Kaguya. A moment ago, everything inside her had been tense and uncertain, but now, something had changed. The heavy feeling she had sensed before was gone. In its place was a quiet calm. To everyone else, only a second had passed. But in that brief instant, Naruko and Kaguya had shared a long and meaningful exchange deep within Kaguya's thoughts. Kaguya slowly turned her head, meeting Naruko's gaze as best she could from where she sat. The air around them felt tight, as if everyone was holding their breath. Sensing this, Kaguya gave a small, gentle smile. Naruko, she said softly, you can relax. I'm all right now. Naruko blinked, surprised. Her grip loosened, and she stepped back just a little, searching Kaguya's face for any sign of trouble. Are you sure? She asked, her voice steady but careful. Something felt different just now. Kaguya nodded slowly. I was lost in my own thoughts for a while, she admitted. But I found my way back. Thanks to you. Naruko let out a quiet breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The tension in her shoulders eased as she helped Kaguya gently to her feet. Around them, the others relaxed too, though they remained watchful. I'm glad, Naruko said with a small smile. I didn't want anything bad to happen to you. Kaguya brushed a bit of dust from her sleeve and gave a soft, appreciative look. You have a kind heart, Naruko. That's your strength. Naruko scratched the back of her head, a little embarrassed. Hey. I just do what I can. After a moment, Naruko signaled for her shadow clones to disperse. They vanished one by one, leaving the space quiet again. Now that everything had settled, a wave of tiredness washed over her. Wow. I didn't realize how exhausted I was, she murmured. Kaguya noticed and gently reached out, this time with care. Naruko flinched just slightly at first, then relaxed as she realized everything was truly okay. Let's go home, Kaguya said kindly. Naruko nodded. Yeah. That sounds perfect. With a soft shimmer of light, Kaguya opened a portal, and together they stepped through into the warmth of their home. The familiar space immediately made Naruko feel more at ease. She slipped off her jacket and dropped onto the couch with a long sigh, resting her cheek against her hand. Today was a lot, she said quietly. Kaguya walked over and sat beside her, her expression thoughtful but calm. We may still have challenges ahead, she said, but we'll face them together. Naruko turned her head and looked at her for a long moment. Then promise me something, she said gently. Kaguya tilted her head. What is it? If things ever feel too overwhelming again, Naruko continued, tell me. Don't try to handle it alone. Kaguya's eyes softened. She nodded. I promise. The room grew quiet after that. A peaceful kind of quiet. Kaguya let out a small yawn, and Naruko couldn't help but smile. Tired? A little, Kaguya admitted. Can we just rest here for a while? Naruko chuckled softly. Yeah. I was hoping you'd say that. She adjusted the blanket over them as one of her clones quietly tidied up the room before disappearing. Soon, the house was still. Kaguya rested comfortably beside Naruko, and Naruko leaned back, closing her eyes. The long day faded away, replaced by a calm sense of safety. For now, everything was peaceful, and that was more than enough. Naruko, a bright and spirited ninja from the Hidden Leaf, rarely remembered her dreams. Most nights, she slept as peacefully as a drifting cloud. But on this particular night, her dreams felt different, strange and puzzling, like a riddle waiting to be solved. In her dream, Naruko stood in a vast, quiet landscape. The world around her was still and silent, like a painting that had forgotten how to move. She looked around, tilting her head. Huh? What is this place? She wondered aloud. A gentle breeze brushed past her, carrying a soft voice with it. The voice felt familiar, like a melody she had heard long ago but couldn't quite place. Naruko turned and saw someone approaching, graceful and calm, with a presence that seemed both distant and kind. It was Kaguya. Kaguya floated closer, her expression thoughtful. Sometimes, she said softly, dreams show us things we don't yet understand. Naruko scratched her head, puzzled but curious. Yeah, but this feels different. Like it's trying to tell me something important. Kaguya smiled gently, her voice soothing. Perhaps it is not something to fear, but something to learn from. Naruko thought about that. She wasn't scared, just unsure. And being unsure was something she could handle. After all, she had faced plenty of confusing situations before, and she always found a way through them. The quiet world around her shimmered slightly, like sunlight dancing on water. Naruko took a deep breath. If it's a message, she said, then I'll figure it out. I always do. Kaguya nodded, her eyes warm. That is your strength, Naruko. In the next moment, the dream faded like morning mist. Naruko awoke with a small gasp, sitting up quickly. The room was dim and peaceful, the early light of dawn peeking through the window. Her heart was beating a little faster than usual, but she soon relaxed. Oh. Just a dream, she murmured, placing a hand over her chest. Beside her, Kaguya stirred, having woken up when Naruko moved. She looked at Naruko with gentle concern. Are you all right? She asked softly. Naruko gave a small smile and nodded. Yeah, I'm okay. Just a strange dream. Kaguya reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from Naruko's face. Do you want to talk about it? Naruko thought for a moment, then shook her head lightly. Not right now. I think. I just need to think about it a little more. Kaguya smiled warmly. That's all right. I'm here whenever you're ready. Naruko's shoulders relaxed. She felt calm again, comforted by Kaguya's presence. Even if the dream had been confusing, she knew one thing for sure, she wasn't alone, and she could face anything with a steady heart. As the morning light grew brighter, Naruko stretched and let out a cheerful sigh. Well, she said with a grin, no mystery is too big for me. I'll figure it out one step at a time. And with that, she started her day, curious, brave, and ready for whatever came next. Naruko stirred awake with a soft sigh, the last traces of a troubling dream fading like mist in the morning sun. She rubbed her eyes and sat up, her golden hair slightly tousled. Beside her, Kaguya noticed the restless look on her face and smiled gently, her expression warm and caring rather than mischievous. Can't sleep? Kaguya asked softly, her voice calm like a lullaby. Naruko gave a small nod, hugging her knees. I had a strange dream. It felt so real. Kaguya moved closer and placed a comforting hand on Naruko's shoulder. Then let me help you feel better, she said kindly. Naruko looked at her curiously. How? Kaguya tapped Naruko lightly on the nose with a playful grin. By reminding you that you're safe, and that tomorrow is full of new adventures. Naruko smiled a little at that. You always say things like that. And they're always true, Kaguya replied. She gently guided Naruko to lie back down and pulled a soft blanket over her. Close your eyes. Naruko obeyed, though she peeked one eye open. You're not going to do anything weird, right? Kaguya laughed quietly. Nothing weird. Just something nice. She began humming a soft, soothing tune, one that felt like a warm breeze on a sunny day. Naruko relaxed as the melody wrapped around her like a cozy hug. Kaguya brushed a few strands of hair from Naruko's face and continued humming, steady and gentle. "You're strong, Naruko," Kaguya whispered. "And no dream can change that." Naruko's breathing slowed as she settled into the bed, her worries drifting away. "Thanks, Kaguya," she murmured sleepily. "Anytime," Kaguya replied. Soon, Naruko was fast asleep again, her face peaceful and calm. Kaguya stayed beside her for a moment longer, watching over her with a quiet smile before resting as well. And in that quiet room, under soft blankets and gentle dreams, the night became kind again. The next morning, Kaguya was the first awake as a soft beam of sunlight slipped through the window and warmed her face. She stirred with a tiny sigh, reluctant to leave the cozy comfort she had found. For a moment, she stayed still, enjoying the quiet. That was a very peaceful sleep, she thought, smiling gently. Then her stomach gave a small, unmistakable rumble. With a quiet laugh, she carefully slipped out of Naruko's embrace so she wouldn't wake her. Moving softly across the room, Kaguya headed into the kitchen. She noticed she was still wearing one of Naruko's oversized shirts, the fabric swaying lightly as she walked. With a small wave of her hand, she closed the window to keep the morning breeze from drifting in. "I'll make something special," she decided. Soon, the kitchen filled with the warm, comforting scent of okonomiyaki. Kaguya hummed a gentle tune as she cooked, moving smoothly from one step to the next. When everything was ready, she arranged the food neatly on a tray, adding 2 glasses of fresh juice. Balancing the tray carefully, she returned to the room. "Good morning, Naruko," she said softly. "Breakfast is ready." Naruko stirred, blinking sleepily as the delicious smell reached her. She sat up, brushing her hair back with one hand, her eyes lighting up at the sight. "Whoa! That smells amazing," she said, her voice still soft with sleep. "Thank you, Kaguya. It looks great." Kaguya smiled as she set the tray down. Naruko took a bite, her face brightening immediately. "This is really good," she said happily. The two sat together, sharing their meal in a peaceful silence for a moment. Then Naruko looked at Kaguya, her expression thoughtful. "I've been meaning to say something," she began, a little unsure but sincere. I really care about you. Being around you makes everything feel calmer." Kaguya blinked in surprise, then her expression softened into a warm smile. "I feel the same way," she said gently. "You've shown me kindness I didn't expect. I'm glad we're here together." Naruko grinned, clearly relieved. "Yeah. Me too." They shared a quiet, happy moment, until Kaguya's expression shifted slightly. "There's someone outside," she said, tilting her head toward the door. "They've been waiting." A moment later, a messenger stepped inside, standing respectfully. "Lady Naruko, Lady Kaguya," the visitor said, bowing slightly. "You are requested at the Hokage's office. The council wishes to speak with you." Naruko let out a small groan and rubbed the back of her head. "Already? It's so early." "The topic concerns future meetings between the village leaders," the messenger explained calmly. "They wish to plan for continued peace." Naruko sighed, but nodded. "All right. Tell them I'll be there soon." The messenger bowed again and quietly left. Kaguya looked back at Naruko, her expression thoughtful. "That didn't sound too serious," she said. "Perhaps they simply want to thank you." Naruko chuckled lightly. "Maybe. Or maybe they just like early mornings more than I do." Kaguya smiled, then grew a little more serious. "Naruko, may I ask you something?" she said gently. "Of course," Naruko replied. "Are you here with me because you truly want to be?" Kaguya asked, her voice calm but careful, "or because you feel like you have to be?" Naruko blinked, surprised by the question. Then she smiled, soft, genuine, and steady. "I'm here because I want to be," she said simply. "Being Hokage matters to me, but so does this. Us. I wouldn't stay if it didn't feel right." Kaguya studied her for a moment, then nodded, her expression easing. "Thank you for being honest," she said. Naruko stretched and stood up, full of energy again. "All right. Let's go handle the boring stuff so we can get back to the fun parts of the day." Kaguya smiled as she followed her. Together, they stepped into the bright morning, ready to face whatever the day would bring, with trust, warmth, and a growing bond between them. Naruto Uzumaki had become Naruko Uzumaki, and she carried herself with the same bright spirit, only now with a softer, thoughtful calm that surprised even her friends. Naruko was a little caught off guard by Kaguya's question, though she had expected it might come someday, given how unusual their partnership was. She paused, choosing her words carefully, then nodded. At first, I stayed close because I felt it was my responsibility, she admitted gently. There aren't many people who could understand you or stand beside you if things became difficult. She gave Kaguya's hand a reassuring squeeze, her eyes warm and sincere. But the more I've gotten to know you, Naruko continued, the more I simply enjoy being around you. You've seen so much of the world, so many things no one else remembers. There's so much I can learn from you. And so much I want to share too. She hesitated, her cheeks turning slightly pink. I just like being with you, Kaguya-chan. Kaguya Otsutsuki tilted her head, a playful smile forming. Oh? I think you said something else too, she teased lightly. Would you like to repeat it? Naruko puffed her cheeks in mock protest, sticking out her tongue for a moment before laughing. You heard me just fine. Kaguya chuckled and gently poked Naruko's side, clearly enjoying the playful moment. Naruko tried to stay serious, but her laughter slipped out anyway. Hey, careful, Naruko said, smiling brightly. If you keep that up, I might have to defend myself. Kaguya only grinned wider and continued her gentle poking. With a quick and light movement, Naruko carefully caught Kaguya's hands and spun her around in a playful twirl. Got you, Naruko said cheerfully. Kaguya, equally quick, slipped free and turned the moment into a friendly game, guiding Naruko back onto the soft bed. Both of them laughed, their movements light and harmless, more like a dance than a contest. After a few moments, they both paused, catching their breath, smiles still lingering. That was fun, Naruko said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It was, Kaguya agreed, her expression soft. Naruko stretched slightly, then glanced toward the window. I should head to the office soon. There's a mountain of paperwork waiting for me, and I've been putting it off. Kaguya gave a small, playful pout. You should bring me something nice when you return. Naruko smiled warmly. How about this, if you bring me lunch later, we'll go out together and pick flowers. Deal? Kaguya's eyes brightened at the idea. Naruko stepped closer and gave her a quick, affectionate hug before heading toward the door. See you soon, she said. With that, she slipped away in a gentle swirl of leaves, leaving behind a quiet room filled with warmth, and the promise of a peaceful afternoon together. Dear YouTube family. This is all for now. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more content ahead. Your support means everything and keeps this journey going. Thank you for watching. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.